Single dad janitor helped starving alien elder. Unaware, it was the Empress's father who watched. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The night shift at Midtown Hospital was particularly quiet. Mike Turner, a single father of two working as a janitor, pushed his mop across the polished floors, the repetitive motion as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. Mike had been working at Midtown for nearly 8 years now, ever since his wife passed away, leaving him with their 2 daughters to raise on his own. The job wasn't glamorous, but it provided health insurance and flexible hours, allowing him to be there for his girls when they needed him most. At 42, his dark hair was beginning to gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes had deepened, but his warm smile remained unchanged. As he worked his way down the corridor of the East Wing, Mike noticed something unusual near the emergency exit. A faint bluish glow seemed to emanate from behind the door, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Curious, he approached cautiously, mop still in hand. "Hello? Anyone there?" he called out, pushing the door open slightly. The sight that greeted him was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Slumped against the wall outside was what could only be described as an alien being. Its skin was pale blue with a translucent quality, lined with intricate patterns that glowed faintly. The creature appeared humanoid but impossibly thin, with elongated limbs and a large, oval-shaped head. It wore what looked like tattered ceremonial robes, now dirty and torn. Mike froze, his mind racing. First contact with an alien species had occurred nearly 3 years ago, but interactions remained limited to diplomatic meetings and carefully controlled exchanges. Ordinary citizens like him rarely encountered the visitors from the stars, known officially as luminarians. The alien's large, almond-shaped eyes flickered open, revealing irises that shimmered like liquid silver. It made a weak gesture with a 6-fingered hand. "Water," it rasped in accented but understandable English. "Please." Mike's initial shock gave way to concern. Whatever this being was, it was clearly suffering. Without hesitation, he propped his mop against the wall and knelt beside the alien. "Hold on," he said gently. "I'll get you some help." The alien weakly grasped Mike's wrist. "No authorities," it whispered. "Dangerous. Just water, food." Mike hesitated. Protocol dictated that he should call security immediately. But something in the alien's eyes, a profound weariness, a desperate hope, struck a chord in him. It reminded him of the look in his own eyes when he'd found himself alone with 2 small children to raise, overwhelmed and desperate for any kindness. "Okay," he decided. "Let me help you inside first." With surprising gentleness for his sturdy frame, Mike helped the alien to its feet and guided it through the emergency exit into a small janitor's closet nearby. The alien was lighter than it looked, almost weightless in his arms, yet it radiated an unusual warmth. "Wait here," Mike said, settling the alien on a stack of clean linens. "I'll be right back." He quickly fetched a bottle of water and his lunchbox from his locker. When he returned, the alien was examining the cleaning supplies with curious fingers, its movements delicate and precise despite its weakened state. "Here," Mike offered the water bottle. "Can you manage this?" The alien took the bottle with trembling hands and, after a moment of examination, figured out how to open it. It drank deeply, its throat pulsing with an internal light as it swallowed. "Thank you," it said, its voice already sounding stronger. "I have traveled far and have not consumed sustenance in many cycles." Mike opened his lunchbox and offered the contents, a sandwich, an apple, and a protein bar. "I don't know if our food is compatible with your system," he said uncertainly. The alien's face wrinkled in what might have been a smile. "Your concern is admirable. Luminarians can process most organic matter. This will suffice." As the alien ate, Mike found himself studying its features more closely. Despite the obvious alien characteristics, there was something dignified about the being, something that spoke of wisdom and experience. "My name is Mike," he offered. "Mike Turner." The alien paused its eating and placed a hand over what Mike assumed was its chest. "You may call me Eorith," it replied. "I am grateful for your kindness, Mike Turner." What happened to you? Mike asked. Are you lost? I thought all the official visitors stayed at the International Diplomatic Center. Eerith's expression changed subtly, a ripple of what might have been concern passing across its features. It is complicated. I am not here in an official capacity. I came to observe your world without the filters of diplomacy, to understand how humans truly live. So you're like, what, a tourist? Mike asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. An observer, Eerith corrected. But I was separated from my equipment and supplies. A misfortune of my own making, I must admit. Mike nodded. He knew about making mistakes and facing the consequences. Well, you picked a hell of a place to end up starving. This hospital has enough problems without an alien incident. Eerith tilted its head. You fear repercussions for assisting me? Mike shrugged. I could probably lose my job, but I couldn't just leave you out there. The alien was silent for a moment, its silver eyes studying Mike with unsettling intensity. Why? It finally asked. Why help a strange being who could bring you trouble? The question caught Mike off guard. He rarely analyzed his own motivations, preferring to act on instinct. I guess because you needed help, he said simply. That's what people do, or what they should do anyway. Eerith nodded slowly, as if processing this information carefully. In my observations, this is not universal behavior among your kind. Mike smiled wryly. Yeah, well, we're a mixed bag. Look, you can rest here for a bit, but I need to finish my shift. Can you stay put for a couple of hours? Then maybe we can figure out how to get you back to wherever you need to be. I will remain here, Eerith promised. Your work is important to you? It pays the bills, Mike replied, standing up and retrieving his mop. And my girls need to eat. Girls? You have offspring? Eerith asked, a new note of interest in its voice. 2 daughters, Mike confirmed, a softness entering his expression. Lily is 14 and Emma is 10. They're everything to me. Eerith nodded solemnly. Family bonds are sacred across the cosmos, it said. I too understand such connections. Get some rest, Mike suggested. I'll be back when my shift ends at 6. As he returned to his cleaning duties, Mike's mind raced with questions. What was he doing harboring an alien in a janitor's closet? What would happen if someone found out? But despite the risks, he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. There was something about Eerith that inspired trust, despite the strangeness of the situation. What Mike didn't notice as he walked away was the subtle change in Eerith's demeanor. The alien's eyes followed him with a calculating intensity, and a small device materialized between its long fingers, a communication tool that had never actually been lost. Eerith spoke softly into it in a language that no human had yet deciphered, the musical syllables forming a detailed report about the human called Mike Turner, whose simple act of kindness was being observed far more closely than he could possibly imagine. For the remainder of his shift, Mike worked diligently while his mind wandered to his unusual guest. He managed to discreetly collect some additional food from the hospital cafeteria, an extra sandwich and some fruit that would otherwise have been thrown out at the end of the night. When he finally returned to the closet, he found Eerith sitting in perfect stillness, eyes closed, a faint humming emanating from its body. The sound stopped abruptly as Mike entered. Sorry to disturb you, Mike said. I brought some more food. Eerith's eyes opened, the silver irises contracting slightly in the light. Your consideration exceeds expectations, Mike Turner. I was merely in a meditative state to conserve energy. Look, Mike said, setting down the food, I've been thinking. My shift is over, and I need to get home to my daughters. They're old enough to be alone for a few hours while I work, but I don't like leaving them too long. You wish to depart, Eerith stated. Yes, but... Mike hesitated, then made a decision that would change his life forever. You could come with me, just until you're strong enough to contact your people. I have a spare room. It's not much, but it's better than a closet. Eerith's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of surprise. You would invite an unknown being into your dwelling? Where your children reside? Mike smiled ruefully. Maybe it's not the smartest move, but I've got a good feeling about you. Call it intuition. Besides, if you wanted to harm us, I figure you could have done it already. Your logic is sound, Earith acknowledged. And your offer is most generous. I accept, with gratitude. And so, in the pre-dawn hours of a Tuesday morning, Mike Turner smuggled an alien visitor out of Midtown Hospital and into his 10-year-old Honda Civic. As they drove through the quiet streets toward his modest home in the suburbs, neither of them fully grasped the significance of this moment. How a simple act of kindness would ripple across the stars and forever alter the relationship between two civilizations. Earith gazed out the car window with evident fascination, studying the sleeping suburbs of the city with keen interest. Your habitation clusters are quite different from the diplomatic center, the alien observed. This is where regular folks live, Mike explained. Nothing fancy, but it's home. They pulled into the driveway of a small, somewhat weathered two-story house. The lawn needed mowing, and the paint was peeling in places, but flower boxes bloomed beneath the windows, Emma's project from the previous spring. Wait here a second, Mike said as he parked. Let me go in first and make sure the girls are asleep. It'll be easier to explain everything in the morning. Earith nodded. A wise approach. Mike entered quietly and checked on his daughters. Both were sleeping soundly. Lily with headphones still on and a textbook open beside her, Emma clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. He gently removed Lily's headphones and pulled the covers over both of them before returning to the car. All clear, he whispered, helping Earith from the vehicle. The alien moved with surprising grace despite its weakened state, taking in every detail of the modest home as they entered. Mike led Earith to the small guest room, which doubled as his home office. Little more than a desk, a computer, and a futon. It's not much, Mike apologized, quickly changing the futon into its bed form. It is perfect, Earith assured him. My needs are minimal. Mike provided some extra blankets, though Earith explained that luminarians required less sleep than humans and primarily needed quiet time for meditation. If you need anything, my room is just down the hall, Mike said. Bathroom's there on the right. I don't know if how you. We have similar biological functions, though our processes differ, Earith said with what might have been amusement. I will manage. Right, Mike said, feeling somewhat awkward. Well, good night then. Rest well, Mike Turner, Earith replied solemnly. Your kindness will not be forgotten. Mike fell into bed exhausted, but found sleep elusive as the reality of his situation sank in. He had brought an alien, a member of a species humanity had only known about for 3 years, into his home where his children slept. Had he lost his mind? Yet something about Earith inspired trust, a feeling Mike couldn't explain but couldn't ignore either. He finally drifted off to sleep, unaware that in the guest room, Earith was once again communicating with an unseen audience, describing in detail the dwelling, lifestyle, and family of the human janitor who had shown such unexpected compassion. Morning came too quickly, announced by the blaring of Mike's alarm clock. He groaned, hitting the snooze button before remembering the events of the night before. He sat up abruptly. Had it been a dream? No, the memory was too vivid, too detailed. He pulled on a t-shirt and sweatpants and cautiously approached the guest room. The door was open, the futon neatly made, but no sign of Earith. Panic surged through him momentarily until he heard voices from the kitchen, one of them distinctly not human. And this is how you prepare the frozen bread? Earith was asking. Yep, you just put it in the toaster, Emma's voice replied cheerfully. Dad says I'm allowed to use it as long as I'm careful. Mike hurried to the kitchen to find an extraordinary scene. Emma, still in her pajamas, was calmly demonstrating the toaster to Earith, who was watching with intense concentration. Lily sat at the table, alternating between texting on her phone and staring at their visitor with undisguised fascination. Good morning, Mike said cautiously. 3 heads turned toward him, 2 human, 1 decidedly not. Dad, Emma exclaimed. Your friend is super cool. He's teaching me luminarian counting. She is a remarkably quick study, Earith commented. Her cognitive abilities are impressive for a juvenile human. Mike approached slowly. I see you've all met. Lily gave him a look that somehow combined excitement with teenage judgment. Yeah? Were you planning to mention the aliens staying in our house? Or, I was going to tell you at breakfast, Mike said, rubbing the back of his neck. It's a long story. Mr. Earith said you helped him when he was hurt, Emma said, retrieving her now toasted bread. That was nice of you, Dad. Just Earith, the alien corrected gently. And yes, your father showed exceptional compassion. I apologize for introducing myself to your offspring before you could prepare them, Mike Turner, but the younger one discovered me examining your food preparation area. I was getting cereal, Emma explained, and he was super confused about the refrigerator. Mike took a deep breath. Girls, Earith needs a place to stay temporarily. He got separated from his people. Are you a diplomat? Lily asked Earith directly, her natural curiosity overcoming any hesitation. Earith's expression remained neutral. I am an observer. My purpose is to understand human culture beyond official interactions. Like an anthropologist? Lily pressed. We learned about them in social studies. A reasonable comparison, Earith conceded. Mike started preparing coffee, trying to maintain some normalcy in this surreal situation. Earith will be staying with us just until he can contact his people. We need to keep this between us, okay? No telling friends, no social media, nothing. Lily rolled her eyes. Obviously, Dad. I don't think the government would be thrilled about an alien crashing in our guest room. Can Earith come to my science presentation? Emma asked suddenly. It's about space. He could be like my visual aid. Mike nearly choked on his coffee. No. Honey, Earith needs to stay here, out of sight. Your project concerns celestial bodies? Earith inquired, seemingly genuinely interested. It's about the solar system, Emma explained excitedly. I made all the planets out of styrofoam balls and painted them. A primitive but effective representation, Earith noted. I would be pleased to review your work, though I cannot attend your educational facility. Mike checked the time. Speaking of which, you both need to get ready for school. Go on, hurry up. As the girls left to prepare for school, Mike turned to Earith. Sorry about that. Kids adapt pretty quickly to weird situations. They are remarkable, Earith said, watching them leave, particularly in their acceptance of difference. Many adult species struggle with this concept. Mike nodded in agreement. Kids haven't learned all our biases yet. He poured himself more coffee. So, about contacting your people. It will require time, Earith interjected. My communication device was damaged. I must repair it before I can establish contact. Do you need parts or something? Mike asked. I'm not sure where we'd get alien tech. Human technology may provide suitable alternatives, Earith said. But the process will take several days, perhaps longer. Mike sighed. He hadn't expected a long-term house guest, especially not one from another planet. But he'd committed to helping, and he wasn't about to back out now. All right, he said. You can stay as long as you need to. But we need some ground rules. When the girls are at school, I sleep. Night shift, remember? You'll have to entertain yourself quietly. When I wake up, I'll help you find whatever you need for your repairs. Your terms are reasonable, Earith agreed. I require little entertainment. Observing your dwelling and artifacts will provide adequate stimulation. Just stay away from windows and don't answer the door, Mike warned. The last thing we need is the neighbors spotting you. After getting the girls off to school, with repeated warnings about secrecy, Mike showed Earith how to use the television and computer before heading to bed. Despite his exhaustion, sleep came fitfully as he wondered what he had gotten himself and his daughters into. When he woke in the afternoon, he found Earith sitting perfectly still in front of the computer, absorbing information at an alarming rate. Web pages flashed across the screen faster than human eyes could read. Whoa, Mike said, startling the alien. That can't be good for the computer. Earith turned, the screen instantly returning to the desktop. My apologies. Your information network is fascinating, inefficient, but vast. Find anything useful for your communicator? Mike asked, pouring himself a glass of orange juice. Potentially, Earith replied. I require certain conductive materials and power sources. Your technology stores may have suitable components. I can take you to an electronics shop, Mike offered. But we'll need to disguise you somehow. They settled on a hooded sweatshirt, sunglasses, and a surgical mask, claiming illness if anyone asked. The disguise was far from perfect, but it would have to do for a quick trip. At the electronics store, Eorith moved with purpose, selecting an unusual assortment of components while Mike trailed behind, trying to act natural. The cashier barely glanced at them, assuming Eorith's strange appearance and behavior were just another example of human eccentricity. On the drive home, Mike's curiosity finally got the better of him. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You may inquire," Eorith responded, examining their purchases. "What's it like? Your world, I mean. We know so little about you, even after 3 years of contact." Eorith was silent for a moment. "It is different. Our cities are built in harmony with the natural formations of our world. We value knowledge and perspective above material wealth. Our social structures emphasize collective wisdom while honoring individual contribution." "Sounds nice," Mike commented. "It has its challenges, as does any civilization," Eorith continued. "We face resource limitations, philosophical disagreements, the balance of tradition and progress, not unlike humanity." "And your family?" Mike asked. "Do you have one? Children of your own?" A subtle change came over Eorith's features, a softening, perhaps, or a momentary vulnerability. "I have a daughter," the alien admitted. "She holds a position of significant responsibility in our society." "You must be proud," Mike said. "Pride is complex," Eorith responded. "I admire her capabilities, but I sometimes fear the distance her position has created between us." Mike nodded, understanding all too well. That happens here too. Success can create its own kind of isolation. When they returned home, Eorith immediately set to work on the communicator, while Mike prepared dinner before the girls returned from their after-school activities. The domestic routine felt strangely normal despite the extraordinary circumstances. Over the next few days, a rhythm established itself in the Turner household. Mike would work his night shift, return home to sleep while Eorith quietly observed human life through television, books, and the internet, then wake to spend time with his daughters and their alien guest in the evening. Eorith proved to be an excellent tutor, helping Lily with her physics homework and reviewing Emma's science presentation. The alien demonstrated impressive patience, explaining complex concepts in terms the girls could understand without condescension. For his part, Mike found Eorith to be a thoughtful conversationalist during the quiet evenings after the girls went to bed. They discussed everything from human politics to the nature of music, a concept Eorith found particularly fascinating, from parenting challenges to the fundamental questions of existence that all sentient species apparently pondered. On the 4th night of Eorith's stay, Mike returned from work to find the alien and Emma sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by art supplies. Emma was teaching Eorith how to make paper cranes, the alien's long fingers folding the paper with meticulous precision. "She has been explaining the concept of art for enjoyment," Eorith informed Mike. "It is not a prominent concept in Luminarian culture." "You guys don't have art?" Mike asked, setting down his lunchbox. "We have aesthetic expression," Eorith clarified, "but it typically serves functional purposes, knowledge preservation, historical documentation, spiritual focus. The concept of creation solely for pleasure or emotional expression is novel." "Dad, Eorith made 27 cranes while I was making one," Emma said, impressed. "And they're perfect." Mike smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. "That's great, kiddo. But it's a school night. Time for bed." After Emma reluctantly went upstairs, Mike sat down across from Eorith. "How's the communicator coming along?" Eorith carefully set aside the completed paper cranes. "Progress is adequate. The human components require adaptation, but the principles are universal." Mike nodded, trying not to feel disappointed that their unusual living arrangement would soon come to an end. Despite the strangeness of it all, he'd grown to enjoy Eorith's company and the positive influence the alien had on his daughters. "You know," Mike said hesitantly, "when you do contact your people, you're welcome to visit us sometimes. If that's allowed, I mean. The girls would miss you." Eorith's silver eyes studied Mike with that penetrating gaze that still made him slightly uncomfortable. Your offer is noted with appreciation, Mike Turner. However, I fear our interactions may become more complicated once I return to my official status. Official status? Mike questioned. I thought you were just an observer. Before Earith could respond, a high-pitched sound emanated from the alien's partially constructed communicator on the counter. Both of them turned toward it in surprise. It appears to be functioning earlier than anticipated, Earith said, rising to examine the device. The communicator pulsed with light, projecting strange symbols into the air above it. Earith studied them, then turned to Mike with what seemed like regret in those alien eyes. Mike Turner, I must confess something to you, Earith began. But before the alien could continue, the front door burst open with a splintering crack. Men in tactical gear flooded into the house, weapons raised, shouting orders. Federal agents. On the ground now. Mike instinctively raised his hands, his heart racing. My daughters are upstairs, he said urgently. Please don't scare them. One of the agents spoke into a radio. We have confirmation. Target acquired. Civilian present. Through the chaos, Mike saw Earith standing perfectly still, making no move to resist or flee. The alien's eyes remained fixed on Mike, communicating something he couldn't quite grasp. As the agents surrounded them, securing Earith with specialized restraints, a new figure entered the house. A woman in a crisp suit with an air of absolute authority. Michael Turner, she stated rather than asked. I'm Director Harlow with the Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. You've been harboring an unregistered alien visitor in violation of the Extraterrestrial Management Act. He needed help, Mike protested. He was starving. The director's expression remained impassive. And instead of contacting authorities, you brought it into your home, where your minor children reside. Not it, Mike corrected firmly, despite his situation. His name is Earith. Director Harlow's eyebrow raised slightly. Indeed. Well, Mr. Turner, Earith is far more significant than you apparently realize. As the agents prepared to escort Earith from the house, the alien finally spoke. The human showed compassion when he had no obligation to do so. This must be considered in your assessment. That will be for others to decide, Director Harlow replied coolly. Mike watched helplessly as Earith was led away. From upstairs came the sound of crying. Emma had awakened during the commotion. Please, he begged the director. Let me check on my daughters. After a moment's consideration, Director Harlow nodded to one of the agents, who accompanied Mike upstairs. He found both girls huddled in Emma's room, frightened by the noise and the presence of strangers in their home. Dad, what's happening? Lily asked, trying to sound brave for her sister's sake. Are you in trouble? Mike pulled them both into a hug. Everything's going to be okay, he promised, hoping it wasn't a lie. Some people found out about Earith, that's all. They need to talk to me about it. Are they taking him away? Emma asked tearfully. I think so, honey, Mike admitted. But I'll make sure he's okay. When he returned downstairs, most of the agents had departed with Earith. Only Director Harlow and two others remained. Mr. Turner, she said, her tone marginally softer. You and your daughters need to come with us as well. Are we under arrest? Mike asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Not at this time, she replied. But this situation requires debriefing and containment. Pack essentials for a few days. Your daughters will be accommodated appropriately. As Mike helped the girls pack small bags, he tried to project a calm he didn't feel. Whatever happened next, he knew their lives would never be the same. The simple act of helping a stranger in need had somehow catapulted them into something much larger than themselves. What he couldn't possibly know was just how large it truly was, or that across the galaxy, the most powerful ruler of the Luminarian civilization was about to receive word that her missing father had been found in the care of a human janitor named Mike Turner. Mike and his daughters were escorted to a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. As they drove away from their home, Lily held Emma's hand tightly while Mike tried to process what was happening. The agents remained silent throughout the journey, ignoring his questions about where they were being taken and what would happen to Earith. After nearly an hour, They arrived at a sprawling complex hidden behind high walls and sophisticated security measures. The sign at the entrance simply read Midwestern Research Center, offering no hint of its true purpose. "This is one of our containment and research facilities," Director Harlow finally explained as they were led through a series of security checkpoints. "It also serves as our primary communication hub with the Luminarian delegation." "Is that where Aerith is?" Mike asked. "The alien is being processed in a different section," she replied evasively. "Your family will be housed in our civilian quarters for now." The civilian quarters turned out to be a surprisingly comfortable apartment-like space with 3 bedrooms, a small living area, and basic amenities. Despite the homey appearance, Mike noted the absence of windows and the electronic lock on the door. They were prisoners, however comfortable their cage might be. A young agent named Rodriguez was assigned to them, explaining that he would provide for their needs and answer approved questions. He seemed sympathetic to their situation, especially with the girls. "How long will we be here?" Mike asked once the girls were settled in their room, Emma finally asleep after crying herself to exhaustion. "That depends on several factors," Rodriguez answered diplomatically. "The situation is complicated." "What's so complicated?" "I helped someone who needed it. That's all." Rodriguez glanced toward the door, then lowered his voice. "Look, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but the alien you were harboring? He's not just any luminarian. He's critically important." "Who is he?" Mike pressed. The agent shook his head. "Above my clearance. But there's been a diplomatic firestorm since he went missing 2 weeks ago. The luminarian leadership has been pressuring our government intensely." Mike sat heavily on the couch, the weight of the situation finally hitting him. "Will I lose my daughters over this?" Rodriguez's expression softened. "Child Services has been notified as per protocol, but given the classified nature of everything, they're keeping their distance for now. If it helps, Director Harlow has a reputation for being tough but fair." It didn't help much, but Mike nodded anyway. "Can I see Aerith? Make sure he's okay." "Not my call," Rodriguez replied. "Try to get some rest, Mr. Turner. Tomorrow will be a long day." Morning came with the artificial brightness of fluorescent lights. After a bland but adequate breakfast delivered by facility staff, Rodriguez returned to escort Mike to debriefing. The girls would remain in the quarters under supervision of a female agent who brought board games and books to keep them occupied. The debriefing room was sterile and intimidating. A metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a large mirror that was obviously one-way glass. Mike sat alone for 20 minutes before Director Harlow entered, accompanied by a stern-looking man in a military uniform. "This is General Matheson, Joint Chiefs Liaison to the Extraterrestrial Affairs Bureau," she introduced curtly. "We need to understand exactly what happened between you and the Luminarian." For the next 3 hours, Mike recounted every detail of his interaction with Aerith, from their first meeting at the hospital to the raid on his home. They asked him to repeat certain parts multiple times, particularly his conversations with Aerith about the alien's background and purpose on Earth. "And at no point did the alien reveal its true identity to you?" General Matheson asked skeptically. "His name is Aerith, and no, he just said he was an observer," Mike replied, his patience wearing thin. "Look, I've told you everything. I'm just a janitor who tried to help someone in need. Can I please see him now? Make sure he's all right." The general and director exchanged looks. "That won't be possible at this time," Harlow stated. "The Luminarian Diplomatic Corps has dispatched a high-level delegation. They arrive within the hour." "So what happens to me and my daughters?" Mike asked. "That depends partly on the outcome of these diplomatic discussions," she replied, "and partly on our assessment of whether you've been entirely truthful with us." Mike leaned forward, his frustration boiling over. "I have been truthful. I'm not some spy or whatever you think I am. I'm a father who works nights cleaning up other people's messes so my kids can have health insurance. I helped Aerith because he needed it, because that's what decent people do. If that's a crime now, then fine, charge me. But don't keep my daughters locked up for my mistakes." Something in his outburst seemed to reach the director. Her expression remained professional, but her tone softened slightly. "No one is charging you with anything yet, Mr. Turner. but the situation is delicate. The Luminarians are particular about their protocols, especially regarding certain members of their society. Before Mike could respond, an aide hurried into the room and whispered urgently to General Matheson. The general's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine emotion Mike had seen from him. "The Luminarian delegation has arrived," Matheson announced, standing abruptly. "And they're insisting on meeting the human immediately." "That's irregular," Director Harlow frowned. "They agreed to preliminary discussions first. Apparently, they've changed the agenda," the general replied tersely. "And given the circumstances, we're accommodating the request." Mike found himself escorted through a series of increasingly secure areas of the facility, finally arriving at what appeared to be a formal meeting room. The space was impressive: high ceilings, elegant furnishings, and elaborate lighting that created an almost ethereal atmosphere. "Wait here," Director Harlow instructed. "Speak only when spoken to. Remember that this interaction could affect diplomatic relations between our species." "No pressure," Mike muttered as they left him alone in the imposing room. Minutes later, a side door opened, and several Luminarians entered. Though similar to Earith in their basic physiology, these aliens wore elaborate attire that clearly denoted their importance. Their skin patterns glowed more vibrantly, and they moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost choreographed. The Luminarian in the center stepped forward. Unlike the others, who were draped in silvery ceremonial robes, this one wore a fitted garment of deep blue with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move across the fabric. The being was slightly smaller than the others, but carried an unmistakable air of authority. "You are Mike Turner," the central figure stated in flawless English, the voice melodic yet powerful. "Yes," Mike confirmed, resisting the urge to add "ma'am" or "sir," unsure of the appropriate address. The Luminarian studied him intently, silver eyes unblinking. "I am Empress Talia of the Luminarian Collective. I understand you provided aid and shelter to one of our kind." Mike's heart pounded. "Empress?" He was facing the ruler of an entire alien civilization. "Yes, Your Majesty," he ventured uncertainly. Earith needed help. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the assembled Luminarians. The Empress's expression remained inscrutable. "Earith," she repeated. "Yes, that is the name he would use. Tell me, Mike Turner, why did you help him when doing so clearly violated your world's protocols?" Mike considered his words carefully, aware of the weight this conversation carried. He was hungry and alone. "Where I come from, you don't turn your back on someone who needs help, no matter who they are, even at risk to yourself and your offspring," the Empress pressed. "I didn't see him as a risk," Mike explained. "He needed help, and I could provide it." It seemed simple at the time. The Empress turned and spoke rapidly in the musical Luminarian language to her companions. They responded with short phrases, clearly deferring to her authority. She then gestured toward the door through which they had entered. "Bring him," she commanded. Two Luminarian attendants departed and returned moments later, escorting Earith. Mike felt relief wash over him at the sight of the alien, who appeared unharmed, though he now wore traditional Luminarian attire similar to the others. "Father," the Empress addressed Earith in English, causing Mike's jaw to drop in shock. "I trust you have been treated appropriately since your extraction?" "Father?" Mike's mind reeled as the pieces suddenly clicked into place. Earith wasn't just any Luminarian. He was the father of their Empress. The starving alien Mike had found by chance outside the hospital was alien royalty. Earith inclined his head respectfully. "I have been treated according to protocol, daughter, though I found the methods of retrieval unnecessarily dramatic." The Empress turned her attention back to Mike, who was still struggling to process this revelation. "You appear surprised, Mike Turner." Yes," Mike admitted. Earith never mentioned he was. "I mean, I knew he had a daughter with an important position, but my father has a tendency toward understatement," the Empress observed with what might have been dry humor. "Particularly when it serves his purposes." Earith stepped forward. "Empress, if I may address the human directly?" She nodded her permission. "Mike Turner," Earith began formally, I must apologize for my deception. While my need for assistance was genuine, my presence on your world was not as unauthorized as I implied. I don't understand, Mike said. My father, the Empress explained, has served as the chief architect of our diplomatic policy for 7 decades. When we established contact with Earth 3 years ago, he designed our approach based on extensive study of human history and behavior patterns. Eorith continued, but theoretical knowledge has limitations. I believe that to truly understand humanity, to craft meaningful long-term relations between our species, I needed direct, unfiltered interaction. So you went undercover, Mike summarized, beginning to understand. Like a secret shopper, but for an entire planet. The concept translated sufficiently for the Luminarians, as several of them made the chirping sound Mike had come to recognize as their version of laughter. An apt comparison, Eorith acknowledged. I arranged to separate myself from our diplomatic contingent during a scheduled transport. My hunger was not feigned. Our metabolism differs from yours, and I miscalculated my nutritional needs. The official story, the Empress added, was that my father had returned to our homeworld for consultation. When he failed to arrive, we initiated discreet inquiries while maintaining the diplomatic fiction to prevent panic or opportunism from either species. Mike shook his head, still processing. So you were watching me this whole time? Reporting back to your people? Not continuously, Eorith clarified. My communication was limited to ensure my experience remained authentic. But yes, I observed you, your offspring, your dwelling, your customs, all without the artificial constraints of diplomatic protocol. And what did you learn? Mike asked, unable to keep a hint of hurt from his voice. He had opened his home to Eorith, introduced him to his daughters, shared meals and conversations, all while being studied like a specimen. Eorith's expression softened in a way that transcended species differences. I learned that the theoretical models were inadequate. They failed to capture an essential quality of humanity, one that you exemplify, Mike Turner, which is compassion without calculation, Eorith stated simply. You helped me not because of potential advantage or obligation, but because it was, in your words, what people should do. This quality exists in our civilization as well, but it has become formalized, institutionalized. Seeing it expressed so naturally has been illuminating. The Empress stepped forward. My father's observations have prompted us to reconsider aspects of our diplomatic approach. Your actions, Mike Turner, may have significantly altered the future relationship between our worlds. Mike felt overwhelmed by the implications. I just helped someone who needed it. I didn't mean to get involved in interstellar politics. The most profound impacts often come from the simplest actions, the Empress observed. Now, there is the matter of your current situation. Your government is understandably concerned about security breaches. Mike's thoughts immediately went to his daughters. My girls had nothing to do with this. They're innocent. Indeed, the Empress agreed, which is why I have formally requested your immediate release and return to your dwelling, with appropriate compensation for your disruption. Relief flooded through Mike. They've agreed to this. They are currently reviewing the proposal, she replied. Though given the circumstances, I anticipate a favorable response. Eorith stepped closer to Mike. There is more. Your actions toward me, despite the potential risk to yourself, deserve recognition beyond mere compensation for inconvenience. I don't need a reward, Mike insisted. Knowing you're okay and that my girls and I can go home is enough. Nevertheless, the Empress interjected, we have taken the liberty of examining your financial records. Mike frowned, uncomfortable with this invasion of privacy. Your struggle to provide for your offspring while maintaining their emotional well-being is admirable, she continued. We wish to alleviate certain burdens, allowing you to focus on the parental relationship that so impressed my father. Before Mike could protest further, the door opened, and Director Harlow entered with General Matheson. Both appeared slightly unsettled, an unusual state for such composed individuals. Mr. Turner, Director Harlow addressed him. After consultation with the Luminarian delegation, we've determined that you and your daughters are free to return home immediately. Transportation will be provided, and your property will be restored to its previous condition. The damage from our entry will be repaired, General Matheson added stiffly, clearly delivering a scripted apology. Additionally, Director Harlow continued, you'll be pleased to know that the Luminarian Embassy has established an educational fund for both your daughters, covering all future schooling costs through advanced degrees. Mike blinked in surprise. They what? A scholarship, Aerith clarified. Your offspring show remarkable potential. It would be regrettable if financial constraints limited their development. And there's one more thing, Director Harlow said, consulting a tablet. You've been offered a new position. I'm being fired from the hospital? Mike asked, his moment of relief giving way to new anxiety. Not exactly, she replied. The Luminarian Embassy has requested you specifically for a new role, Cultural Integration Liaison. The position comes with a substantial salary increase, regular hours, and full benefits. Mike stared at them in disbelief. A liaison? But I'm not a diplomat or a scientist. I'm just a janitor. You are precisely what we require, the Empress stated. Someone who sees beyond differences, who understands the fundamental needs all sentient beings share, and who acts with compassion rather than calculation. The technical aspects can be taught. The essential qualities you possess cannot. Aerith's silver eyes held a warmth Mike had come to recognize despite their alien nature. Your perspective would be invaluable in helping both our species navigate our evolving relationship. Mike ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. I need to think about it. Talk to my daughters. Of course, the Empress acknowledged. There is no urgency. The offer remains open regardless of your decision. Director Harlow cleared her throat. If there's nothing else, we'll arrange for Mr. Turner to be reunited with his daughters and returned home. The Empress nodded her assent. As the humans prepared to leave, Aerith approached Mike one last time. Mike Turner, the alien said formally, I regret the deception, but I do not regret the experience. Your home and family provided insights no official interaction could have offered. Will I see you again? Mike asked, surprised by how much he hoped the answer would be yes. I return to our homeworld tomorrow to present my complete observations, Aerith replied. But I suspect our paths will cross again, regardless of your decision about the position. My daughter values my counsel, and I value the perspective you have given me. Mike nodded, then on impulse extended his hand. Aerith looked at it for a moment before carefully taking it in his own six-fingered grip. In your culture, this signifies agreement or farewell, the alien noted. In this case, both, Mike replied. Agreement that we've learned from each other, and farewell for now. The journey home was considerably more comfortable than their departure had been. Emma slept most of the way, emotionally exhausted, while Lily bombarded Mike with questions he could only partially answer due to security restrictions that Director Harlow had thoroughly explained. So Aerith was like an alien king? Lily asked, trying to piece everything together. More like the father of their queen, Mike explained. And apparently a very important diplomat. And they're giving us money for college? Something like that, Mike said, still processing it himself. And they offered me a job. Lily's eyes widened. Are you going to take it? Mike looked out the window at the passing landscape. I don't know yet. It would mean regular hours, better pay. I could be home every night with you girls. You should do it, Dad, Lily said with teenage certainty. It's way better than cleaning up after sick people all night. When they arrived home, Mike was shocked to find not only had the damaged door been repaired, but the entire house had undergone subtle improvements. The peeling paint was fresh, the lawn manicured, the interior spotlessly clean. Even the ancient refrigerator had been replaced with a new model. They work fast, he muttered as he explored the changes. That evening, as Emma slept and Lily texted friends with a heavily edited version of their family emergency, Mike sat on the back porch contemplating the extraordinary turn his life had taken. The night sky seemed different somehow, knowing what, and who, was out there among the stars. A week later, after much consideration and family discussion, Mike accepted the position with the Luminarian Embassy. His first day orientation was conducted by a junior diplomat who explained that Mike would help interpret human culture and customs for the Luminarian staff while assisting humans who interacted with the embassy in understanding Luminarian perspectives. "You'll have a counterpart on our side," the diplomat explained. "Someone familiar with both cultures who can help bridge gaps in understanding." When Mike was led to his new office, a modest but pleasant space with actual windows, he found a familiar figure waiting for him. "Irith," he said in surprise, "I thought you returned to your homeworld." The elder Luminarian inclined his head in greeting. "I completed my report and have been reassigned." The Empress felt my experience with human domestic life made me uniquely qualified to serve as your counterpart. Mike couldn't help but laugh. "So, I'm going to be working with the alien who spied on me while eating my food and teaching my kids how to count in Luminarian?" An accurate, if somewhat limited summary, Irith acknowledged, his silver eyes crinkling in what Mike now recognized as amusement. "I prefer to think of it as continuing a cultural exchange that began with an act of compassion." As they settled into their new roles, a genuine friendship developed between the human janitor and the alien elder. Irith became a regular visitor to the Turner home, where Emma proudly showed him her science project, which earned an A+, and Lily sought his help with college applications. 6 months later, Mike found himself in an unprecedented position, accompanying Irith to the Luminarian homeworld as part of the first cultural exchange program. Standing beside his alien friend as they disembarked from the diplomatic vessel, Mike gazed in awe at the crystalline spires and flowing architecture of the alien capital. "Welcome to Lumina, Mike Turner," Irith said formally for the benefit of the assembled dignitaries. Mike nodded respectfully to the welcoming committee, then leaned closer to Irith. "Not bad for a janitor who just helped a hungry stranger," he whispered. "Not bad indeed," Irith agreed. "Though I maintain I saw something in you from our first meeting, a quality worth observing." "And I just saw someone who needed a sandwich," Mike countered with a grin. Their good-natured debate was interrupted by the arrival of the Empress, resplendent in ceremonial attire. The assembled Luminarians bowed deeply, and Mike followed suit, still uncomfortable with the formality his position now required. The Empress approached them directly, ignoring protocol. "Welcome, Mike Turner of Earth," she greeted him. "Your presence honors us." "The honor is mine, Your Majesty," Mike replied, having finally learned the proper address. "I trust my father has been an adequate guide to our customs." "More than adequate," Mike assured her, though he still doesn't understand why humans enjoy music with rhythmic bass lines. The Empress made the chirping sound of Luminarian laughter. "Some cultural differences may never be bridged, but it is in the attempt that we find connection." As the formal reception continued, Mike observed the interactions between humans and Luminarians with satisfaction. Diplomats from both species conversed with increasing comfort, the initial awkwardness of their differences giving way to genuine exchange. Later, in a quiet moment away from the ceremonies, Irith joined Mike on a balcony overlooking the alien city. "Your daughters would find this view fascinating," the elder Luminarian observed. "They're coming next month for their school break," Mike replied. "Emma's already planning which rocks she wants to collect, and Lily's working on a comparative sociology paper." Irith nodded approvingly. "They have embraced this new reality with remarkable adaptability." "Kids are good at that," Mike said. "Better than adults, usually." They stood in companionable silence, watching the 3 moons of Lumina rise above the horizon, casting multicolored light across the crystalline landscape. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Mike said finally. "That first night, when I found you outside the hospital, was that really an accident? Or did you choose that location?" "Choose me." Irith considered the question carefully. "The location was selected for its relative seclusion. The individual who would find me was not predetermined. But you could have approached anyone," Mike pressed. "Why accept help from a janitor specifically?" "Because," Irith replied thoughtfully, "in my studies of human society, I had observed that those who perform essential but unheralded tasks often possess the clearest understanding of fundamental values. Physicians in your hospital might have helped me out of professional obligation. Security personnel out of duty. But you helped simply because help was needed. Mike absorbed this, oddly touched by the alien's assessment. In the end, Earith continued, my experiment yielded results far beyond my expectations. Not only did I gain insight into human domestic life, but I also catalyzed a diplomatic breakthrough. And perhaps most unexpectedly, I gained a friend. Not bad for a chance meeting. Mike agreed. Perhaps not entirely chance, Earith mused. The cosmos has patterns beyond our comprehension. As they turned to rejoin the reception, Mike couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought him here. From mopping hospital floors to standing on an alien world, all because he'd offered a sandwich to a hungry stranger. In the grand reception hall, he watched as humans and luminarians mingled, the initial wariness between their species gradually giving way to genuine curiosity and exchange. Diplomats who had once communicated through careful formality now engaged in animated discussions. Scientists from both worlds shared discoveries with growing enthusiasm. The Empress herself moved among the guests, her formal reserve softening as she engaged directly with the human delegates. When she approached Mike, he was struck again by the resemblance to her father, particularly in the thoughtful intensity of her gaze. Cultural Integration Liaison Turner, she addressed him, using his official title. I must commend you on your contributions to our recent trade agreement. Your insights regarding human perspectives on resource sharing proved invaluable. Thank you, Your Majesty, Mike replied. Though Earith deserves most of the credit for translating my explanations into diplomatic language. You undervalue your role, she observed. Before your involvement, our negotiations proceeded with technical precision but lacked humanity. Her silver eyes crinkled slightly at her own wordplay. Mike smiled, still amazed at how far he'd come from his janitor's closet. I just try to help people understand each other. Not so different from making sure the hospital floors are clean and safe, really. The Empress tilted her head, considering this comparison. An interesting perspective. Perhaps there is wisdom in viewing diplomacy as a form of maintenance, creating conditions where interactions can proceed without unnecessary friction. As the evening drew to a close, Mike found himself standing beside Earith as the Empress delivered the formal closing address. She spoke eloquently about the future of human-luminarian relations, emphasizing the unexpected insights that had emerged from unplanned encounters. Our initial protocols for contact were built on careful analysis and theoretical models, she told the assembled dignitaries. But it was an unscripted act of compassion that truly opened the door to understanding between our worlds. Her gaze found Mike in the crowd, acknowledging without words the role his simple kindness had played in reshaping interstellar diplomacy. Later, as Mike prepared to return to his guest quarters, Earith accompanied him through the crystalline corridors of the diplomatic complex. You seem contemplative, Mike Turner, the elder luminarian observed. Mike nodded. Just thinking about how different my life was a year ago. Mopping floors at night, worrying about bills, trying to be there for my girls despite being exhausted all the time. Do you regret the change? Earith asked. Not for a second, Mike replied without hesitation. But sometimes I wonder why me? Out of all the people you could have encountered, why was I the one who ended up here? Earith was silent for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps it is not a question of why you specifically, but rather what you represent. Your response to finding me, immediate compassion without calculation, exemplifies a quality that exists in both our species but is often obscured by policy, protocol, and preconception. Just basic human decency, Mike suggested. A force more powerful than many recognize, Earith agreed, and one that transcends the differences between our worlds. As they reached Mike's quarters, Earith performed the formal luminarian farewell gesture, a graceful movement of hands that symbolized paths crossing and continuing forward. Until tomorrow, friend Mike, the alien said. Until tomorrow, Mike echoed, adding the human touch of a warm smile. Alone in his room, Mike opened a communication channel to Earth, eager to share the day's experiences with his daughters. As Lily and Emma's faces appeared on the screen, their excitement palpable even across the vast distance between worlds, Mike felt a profound sense of gratitude. His life had been transformed not by any grand heroic act, but by the simple decision to help someone in need, a universal instinct that, as it turned out, truly was universal. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.